One, each person is important. Two, be kind in all you do. Three, we help each other learn. Four, and search for what is true. Five, all people have a say. Six, work for a peaceful world. Seven, the web of life's the way that will bring us back to me and you. Don't believe us, so do. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. That will bring us back to me and you. Don't believe us alone together, so do.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Georgetown, Texas. Our mission is to welcome all, promote personal and spiritual growth, and work for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. You can learn more about our church at our website. Search San Gabriel UU of Georgetown, or more about Unitarian Universalists at www.uua.org. As we face this new day in this new and unfamiliar way, we are apart, but we are all together, still offering our love, our commitment, and our hopes in service to one another and this world. My name is Jim Wool. I'm a proud member of San Gabriel. I'm here this morning because we're starting our pledge drive. And every year we've asked members of the church to talk about why they're UUs. Some background. I spent my working career in high tech, and I came out of a Methodist background, but left them when I discovered most of the churches were Methodist social clubs and not really promoting the spirituality that I aspire to. Family, work, and travel had been, business travel had been my existence. I found Unitarianism at Horizon UU Church of Carrollton, Texas, shortly after I retired. I liked it because I didn't have to repeat words I really didn't believe. The congregation was very different. There were a variety of religions: Buddhists, Wiccans, Christians, atheists, a mixture of ages, a mixture of ethnicities. I began to read and understand the Unitarian principles, and they gave me a base to deal with that Unitarian diversity. I came to believe that all of those principles led me to acceptance. If you accept the UU principles, then I accept you. Now, for San Gabriel, I'm a founding member. I helped write the bylaws. My wife and I have served in a number of positions in the church, and we've helped the church grow. I'd like to see the church reach 250 members and have a rich set of small groups, which is what I'd found at Horizon. Now, because the principles are so important to me, I'm going to read them here. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic processes within our congregations and society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the independent web of all existence of which we are a part. And that's why I'm a UU. Now, on to this morning's service.
We light this chalice this morning with the words adapted from the Upanishads, the Sanskrit text of religious teachings. We light this chalice to help us move from untruth to truth, to help us move from ignorance to wisdom, to help us move from animosity to love, to help us move from bondage to freedom. We rededicate ourselves before this light to affirm and practice truth, wisdom, love, and freedom today and in the days to come.
Greetings. Welcome to this worship service at SGUUF. I am Reverend Sandra Ingham. I hope that you will join us regularly, if you are not already doing so, for our Sunday services. Sunday being in quotes because you can watch this video anytime you choose. The title of today's reflections is Happy Anniversary. And this is a service that begs to be done live. This week marks exactly 1 year since I arrived in Georgetown, Texas to be the interim minister at San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And this 1 year anniversary belongs to all of you in the congregation, as well as to myself, and how I wish that you were actually here in this room. Yes, I am in the sanctuary at the fellowship. The opening words were written by the Reverend Kathleen Rollens, titled In the Meantime. In the meantime, in the meantime is in between times, between the always been and the here and now, between the what is and the not yet, between the tentative hello and the tender goodbye. We are living in the meantime. We gather together virtually this day to give ourselves over to time made holy by our attention, our presence, and our prayers. We gather together in the meantime, in the in-between time, from wherever we have been to wherever we will go. May we attend well to the attentions of this hour. I invite you now to join Marcia Lovin, a member of our congregation, in reciting the words of this congregation's affirmation, which is also a mission statement of sorts.
Hi, I'm Marcia Lovin. Would you join me this morning in reciting our affirmation? The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Hi, Karina. This is another week when I know what the story is. And today, I also know what is in the Wonder Box. I don't always know that. The person who wrote today's story, Oliver Jeffers, wrote it to welcome his son into the world. But Karina has tweaked it a bit and enlarged the scope of the story to make it more in tune with what I hope to say in just a little bit.
Thank you, Reverend Sandy, and good morning, everyone. Are you ready with your wandering mind? We, you use, love our wandering minds that help us learn and grow. We do that work together. Do you have a guess as to what might be in here? Not super noisy today. Make a guess and tell someone near you what you think might be in here, and I'll open it up. Let's see. It's a little booklet, and it says it's a user guide for a camera that we once bought. Have you ever bought anything that's needed? You need to read the instructions first. Sometimes things are so complicated, we need to do that before we can even start. And sometimes, even if you've had something for a while, you need to refer back to the manual. The story I'm about to share with you is a very helpful user guide. It's called Here We Are, Notes for Living on Planet Earth by Oliver Jeffers. To my son, Harland, this book was written in the first 2 months of your life as I tried to make sense of it all for you. These are the things you need to know. Well, hello. Welcome to this planet. We call it Earth. It is the big globe floating in space on which we live. We're glad you found us, as space is very big. There is much to see and do here on Earth. So let's get started with a quick tour. The planet is basically made up of two parts, land and sea. The land is basically rocks and dirt, and the sea is water. Firstly, let's talk about the land. What we're standing on right now. We know lots about the land. Can you see that hot volcano? There's bumpy parts and flat parts, pointy, cold with snow, dry, hot, wet. There's also the sea, which is full of wonderful things. We know a bit about the sea, but we'll talk more about that once you've learned to swim. There's also the sky, though that can get pretty complicated, and you can see it's like showing us about this outer space and Milky Way and constellations, but then also about our sun and the sky color. It can be quite confusing. On our planet, there are people. One people is a person. You are a person. You have a body. Look after it, as most bits don't grow back. There are 3 important things that people need to remember, and they are to eat, drink, and stay warm. People come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. We may all look different, act different, and sound different, but don't be fooled. We are all people. There are many animals too. They come in even more shapes, sizes, and colors. They can't speak, but that's no reason not to be nice to them. You may not be able to speak yet either, even though your head is filled with questions. Be patient. You'll learn how to use words soon enough. Generally, how it works is that when the sun is out, it's daytime and we do stuff. The rest of the time is night when it's dark, save for the moon, and we sleep. Please, can you see the little baby who's not sleeping as they should? Things can sometimes move slowly here on Earth. More often, though, they move quickly, so use your time well. It will be gone before you know it. Though we have come a long way, we haven't quite worked everything out, so there is plenty left for you to do. You will figure lots of things out for yourself. Just remember to leave notes for everyone else. It looks big, Earth. But there are lots of us on here, so be kind. There is enough for everyone. Well, that is planet Earth. Make sure you look after it, as it's all we've got. Now, if you need anything else, just ask. I won't be far away. And when I'm not around, you can always ask someone else. You're never alone on Earth. The end. Reverend Sandy is preaching on her past year with us, and also on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, when people take stock of the past year and ask forgiveness from those they have harmed. As we look forward, it is good to look backward as well and remember what we had hoped to accomplish. Having a user guide can help. Our covenant, our values, and our faith can be that guide. We'll talk more about that today in RE time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karina. Although we cannot, of course, actually pass the offering plates when the service is a virtual one, we encourage you to please remember that this congregation depends on your financial support, whether or not you are able to put checks and/or cash into an offering basket. There will be information on your screens during this musical interlude about how to give to the fellowship during this time when we are unable to meet in person. And that information will be repeated during the postlude. I invite everyone now to try to center yourselves as we have a few moments of silence followed by a breathing meditation. I would like to share this reading with you, written by Unitarian Universalist minister David Blanchard. And he titles this short reading, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. And he intended it for, well, he wrote it around Valentine's Day, but it's applicable anytime. Most of us look for love in only the most obvious places, writes Reverend Blanchard. And as a result, most of us come away disappointed. It's as if we are still grade school kids, counting Valentines as a measure of what matters. The love that matters is not typically the subject of sonnets or love songs. There can be love in being told we are wrong. There can be love in sharing a regret. There can be love in asking for help. There can be love in communicating hurt. There can be love in telling hard truths. Most of us find it painful to live at this level of love, but it can be there, even in these most unlikely places. It isn't the kind of love we've been promised in the fairy tales of princes and fairy godmothers, but it is the kind experienced by frogs and dwarfs. It's the sort of love that can bring us closer to finding the missing pieces of ourselves that we need to make us whole. Some of the most loving things I've ever experienced, writes Blanchard, I haven't been ready for, wasn't looking for, and nearly didn't recognize. A few of them I didn't want, but all of them have changed me, transformed some part of me, filled in a place that I didn't even know was empty. When the Valentine has been tucked away in a drawer, the candy eaten, the flowers faded and gone, there will be other legacies of love that will last as long as we do, because they have brought us to know an element of life, part feeling, part idea, part mystery, that once known is ours to keep. Almost exactly 1 year ago, on Friday, October 4th, 2019, in the middle of the afternoon, in 97-degree heat, I drove into Georgetown, Texas, to start my interim ministry with you. As I wrote in the Messenger, this congregation's newsletter, in many ways it is difficult to fathom that an entire year has gone by already. On the other hand, it often seems to me that I have been here forever. Don't take that the wrong way. Those words about time are merely a reflection of the strangeness of time and its passage during a worldwide pandemic that was not part of the plan. Well, not of my plan, at any rate, when I rolled into town a year ago. The first person I met, fittingly, was Karina, once I figured out where the fellowship was in relation to where I was. That evening, Mary and Dave Abbey took me out to dinner, and they also brought me chairs and a small table and quilts. I had arrived with no furniture. Furniture eventually appeared, donated furniture from many of you, and thanks to your generosity. The day after I got here, I went to my first committee meeting. Well, what else did I have to do? And it happened to be the Sunday services team meeting. I couldn't believe how many people were there. I had the same reaction 2 days later at a social justice committee meeting. Lots of folks there. The number of people attending committee meetings would change and then change again over the year. And it's still changing. Not only is this week my 1-year anniversary of being in Texas, this week marked an anniversary with much larger and more significant meaning than anything in my personal life. The celebration of Yom Kippur, signifying the end of the Jewish high holidays. The Jewish high holidays have been meaningful to me for decades, a time of year to take stock of where we have been and to make resolutions for the upcoming new year. Something that I just don't experience in the same way on December 31st and January 1st. These Jewish sacred days of reflection and introspection are a gift, an opportunity for me to slow down and to think about my actions during the past year, then encouraging me to think forward as a new year begins. I try to use the time to look at my sins. Yes, you heard the word right, sins. Say what? Unitarian Universalists don't believe in sin, do we? Or the need for forgiveness or redemption? Yes, some of us do, maybe many of us. When considering my actions during the past year, I try to be as honest with myself as possible, reminding myself that I sin anytime that I am out of relationship with myself, with others, with planet Earth. In other words, a lot. I seek vulnerability and humility. I strive for more compassion towards myself, towards those whom I personally know, and towards all beings everywhere. As I wrote in the newsletter, you might about now be asking, well, how's that working for you? Especially in a world gone mad. I came across this sentence the other day in a brief article about a rabbi in New York City, a young rabbi who's trying to make her ministry more personal. And she said, calamity can lead to clarity. Calamity can lead to clarity. Well, we can only hope. We can only hope that we will find some clarity in this mess the world is in right now. Have you found any? The reading I shared earlier by David Blanchard was helpful to me. I, too, often look for love in all the wrong places. On this anniversary, each and every one of us in this fellowship needs to remember that there can be love in being told we are wrong. There can be love in telling hard truths. All part of an interim minister's job description, by the way, trying to speak the truth as I see it to you. Clarity and compassion and strength to carry on can be found in many of our hymns. Hopefully, you will find that to be true in both of today's hymns. Each stresses the importance of relationships. That opening song, Lean on Me, invites us to let our vulnerability show, to lean on each other when we are sorrowful and in pain. Swallow your pride, share the load, lean on each other. So I keep searching for clarity, compassion, humility, and vulnerability. I went back to the first Sunday service that I did at San Gabriel Fellowship. On Sunday, October 20th, 2019, it was live, as in people were here, person to person. Here are some things that I said to you that day. And when I titled those reflections, Building the Beloved Community, ... or not. I'll have more to say about that at the end of these reflections. When my granddaughter Clara was 3 years old, I was visiting her and her parents, my son and daughter-in-law, and I had stayed overnight and was the first one up in those early morning hours, but soon enough I heard that pitter-patter of small feet, and Clara burst into the room saying in a not quiet voice, look, Grandma Sandy," because she always drew out my name like that. I got up, followed by, look, Grandma Sandy. I got dressed. Clara had already figured out the secret of a successful life at age 3. Show up, preferably dressed. Woody Allen said that 80% of success is showing up. Clara was also tuned into one of the most important components of building a beloved community. Be there, be present with love, be present with as much exuberance as possible, over and over and over again. What do I mean when I talk about the beloved community? I mean a place where all are welcome, no matter whether they are Unitarians or Universalists, Jews or Muslims, atheists or agnostics, Buddhists or Christians, unchurched or coming from strict fundamentalist backgrounds. In the beloved community, everyone feels that they belong, that they are heard, that they are seen, that they matter. They feel a sense of being part of something larger than their individual selves. Whatever their gender preference, their sexual orientation, their abilities or lack of abilities, whatever the color of their skin, and yes, they feel a part of the beloved community, no matter what their political views and beliefs. The umbrella that we shelter under in this community gets bigger and bigger as needed. We are not going to achieve the beloved community overnight, or in a few weeks, or even months or years. The decisions that this faith community makes during this transition period will affect San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship for a long time. The concept of beloved community is not a new idea. It is not an idea that is exclusive to Unitarian Universalism. If anything, we Unitarian Universalists have been late to the party. Why? Because we have clung to the doctrine of rugged individualism way too long. Throughout most of our history, we have neglected the flip side of rugged individualism, beloved community, or put another way, a community of individuals. Transition is a journey. In his book, Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes, William Bridges tells us that without a transition, a change is just a rearrangement of the furniture. Bridges talks about the 4 rules of transition, which we might want to visit from time to time during the next few months. Oh, here we are, revisiting. The 4 rules are: 1, when you're in transition, you find yourself coming back in new ways to old activities. 2, every transition begins with an ending. We have to let go of the old thing before we can pick up the new one, not just outwardly, but inwardly. 3, although it is advantageous to understand your own way of endings, some part of you will resist that understanding as though your life depended on it. And 4, first there is an ending, then a beginning. But in between the two, that is between that ending and the beginning, is the most important part. Bridges calls this interim part an empty or fallow time, and we too often neglect its existence. Transitions will not be successful unless we recognize and pay attention to the fact that grief is always part of an ending. And if the grief is not acknowledged and talked about, it will most likely haunt you. Failing to respect grief will create a roadblock to successful new beginnings. Moving through the unknown phase of transitioning that is known as the neutral zone and that I have been referring to as the in-between time, you are neither here nor there. For a while, we will lose sight of the land during this phase, possibly for a very long time, or what seems like a very long time. When in that neutral zone, not doing is sometimes important. We go through the neutral zone until we get to a new beginning. And when we get there, we need to remember that the new beginnings are always messy. On the plus side, though, this means that we can see the shore now, however distant it may still be. My job is to do the best that I can to guide you during this transition period, perhaps especially when you are in that neutral zone. The Unitarian Universalist Association's Transition Office tells interim ministers that the bottom line, the most important thing for interim ministers to keep in mind is do no harm. And I will have a little more to say about that in just a moment. The process of transition that you have entered into will be messy. It will be chaotic. It will be hard work. You will have to show up. But look, Reverend Sandy, you can say, you got up today, you got dressed, you showed up, you are already doing an important part of the process. Can you go through this process of transition with love, kindness, and compassion, knowing that there will be chaos, and can you sustain that? I just added that right this minute. Can you sustain it, especially in that neutral zone? You will have to try to be comfortable with chaos. William Bridges says, in this sense, chaos is not simply a mess, it is the primal state of pure energy. Think about that. Chaos is the primal state of pure energy to which the person or the organization must return for every true new beginning. Bridges writes, during the transition time and on your way to the beloved community, you will need to find balance. He is referring more specifically to balance between chaos and order, and balance between, in the words of Unitarian Universalist historian Conrad Wright, balance between the individualistic strand within liberal religion and the commitment to community. Where is the balance? Your task requires vision and practicality. Your job is to, as best you can at this moment in time, ground the idealism of this sacred community, ground the idealism with the reality of being organized and thus effective in the larger, broader community, what we sometimes call the real world. There will be dark times in the chaos of the neutral zone, but if you have a big umbrella and are not afraid of some change, then over the next few months, during my time with you, I believe that you will make good choices about building a beloved community. The choices are up to you, but I believe that you are already on the right track. Thus endeth my sharing of some of the reflections I did that first Sunday that I spoke to you. Here are some of my responses to myself today, 1 year later. First of all, we're still trying to find the balance, this is an ongoing thing, between the individual and the community. You still have a fair amount of work to do with organizing, but you're only 13 years old. You were 12 years old when I got here, so you must be 13 years old now. But most of what I wrote then, a year ago, still holds true. Every leaving starts with an ending. You are still in the transitional period. I know some of you don't want to admit that. Some of you want to just rush. No, you're still in the transitional period, in that neutral zone, and that's the most important place to be. You're still grappling with leaving the old and moving across the unknown and reaching an ending. It will happen, and it is beginning to happen. But that's fine that you're still grappling with this. Transitioning takes time. You're not behind any curve or failing any test or failing to live up to some standard out there somewhere in UU land. Two important takeaways from those 2019 reflections. First, the imperative that Unitarian Universalists have to learn how to balance community and individualism. And the second thing is learning to appreciate and live with chaos. Well, to help you do both, I have some hints. Keep in mind this seemingly simple sentence that I have borrowed from journalist David Brooks, with whom I do not always agree. Brooks said this: "The system depends on the goodwill of the participants." Brooks was referring to our country and how we are and how we govern it, or not. But I find that phrase equally applicable to a congregation. To increase the chaos that is already inherent in your transitional time between ministers, look what we have added in the past 6.5 months. I hereby decree that you will do all this work of searching for a settled minister, all of this scary transitioning work within the context of a pandemic, worldwide economic collapse, intense, difficult, necessary civil unrest that demands that we work for true systemic change, and finally, severe stress levels. It is so necessary to say these things out loud, to frequently talk about these additional challenges in our daily lives, because we don't give the fact of these challenges enough credit, enough thought, in the sense of what these levels of concern and immense uncertainty do to our health and to our relationships with each other. Everything is upside down. Things are changing constantly. There is no normalcy, and no one knows what. And we tend to gloss over these truths. That is a mistake. And we need to stop ignoring these realities in which we are living. There are many tools that can help us through these times, not the least of which is continuing to trust and respect each other. Please never assume that I get up in the morning and think about, who can I offend during the day? I really don't do that. But I can assure you that I will continue to offend you once in a while. Again, I repeat, it's part of my job description. Instead of saying do no harm in those reflections from last year, I should have said do no lasting harm. And here is a tool that I think might help me do the truth-telling part of my job a little better and keep my blood pressure from rising too much. I got this little gem of advice from last week's The New Yorker magazine in the mail section, aka letters to the editor. A reader wrote, "I have learned to resist my urge to control my surroundings and instead strive to maintain an attitude of tolerance, patience, and above all, wonder and appreciation." Wonder and appreciation. Yes, that fits right in with my Yom Kippur yearnings. I seek vulnerability and humility. I strive for more compassion. As Karina said, today's service is about going back to our user's guides to help us with life in general, but particularly to help us during periods of transition. I too hope that our covenant, our values, and our faith function as important parts of our user's guide. We need to remember what we have accomplished during the past year. As today's story for all ages reminded us, We strive to be kind and remember that there is enough for everyone. We strive to make sure that we look after planet Earth and to always remember that we are never alone on Earth. There are plenty of people to lean on and to be there for us when we are frightened. There are some wonderful tools from theologian Karen Armstrong for building and sustaining our community, and I'd hope to share some of these with you today. She lays these out for us in her book, 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life. These are equally applicable to building a compassionate community. And that is one thing that I would change in those 2019 reflections. I wish I had titled those October 2019 reflections, Building the Compassionate Community, rather than Building the Beloved Community. I wasn't with you very long last fall before I realized that you seemed to be overusing that phrase, beloved community, perhaps without quite a clear understanding of it. But as is so often the case, I have run out of time today. Karen Armstrong's wisdom will have to wait until later. I long for redemption. We all do. And we receive it, but hardly ever by following a straightforward, narrow path. I will let Kathleen McTeague expand on this thought as I close my remarks. Reverend McTeague calls her short meditation Backside Redemption. She writes, each August, my family vacations for 2 weeks in a cabin on Mount Desert Island in Maine. We often explore the back roads on bikes, and one early morning I set out on my own. I wanted to explore a new route I hoped would take me in a nice long loop, but I got lost. Just as I was steeling myself to turn around and retrace the long uphill road back to the cabin, I pedaled around one last curve and saw two things simultaneously. First, a tiny white church with a small, perfect steeple and bright red doors, and then the prominent sign with lovely church-like calligraphy, Backside Redemption. I stopped, wheeled my bike to the side of the road, leaned on the handlebars, and stared in awe at the sheer boldness of the declaration. Who were these people who could actually admit that the redemption they offered was the backsided kind, a sort of come as you are, seat of the pants, possibly not even fit for good society kind of redemption? And then I saw the little recycling hut off to the side behind the church. Belatedly, I realized that the marvelous sign did not refer to the church at all, but to the recycling hut, identified as backside because this part of the island faces the mainland, not the ocean. Sheepishly, I looked around and spotted a smaller sign offering up the real name for the church, but by then it was too late. The little white building with its neatly painted red doors had forever sunk into my psyche as the Backside Redemption Church. This image has become a touchstone for me, a reminder that the only kind of redemption we ever really get is the backside kind, the kind that doesn't come in the package or on the schedule we have in mind. Like getting lost on my bike and then stumbling upon the church. It's backside redemption when a wrong turn takes us to a place that brings us up short and makes us stop and stare in amazement. Backside redemption can be waiting for us in the more drastic detours of our lives, such as a pandemic, perhaps, although she wrote this well before the pandemic. The more drastic detours of our lives, such as the plans that don't materialize, the mistakes we make, the delays, disappointments, and losses that somehow, over the long run, lead us to new insight and show us where we're really trying to go. The little church and the recycling center offer a lovely serendipity. Both have to do with redemption. What happens when we recycle bottles and cans? they are transformed. They are made into something else. Though it may seem a homely analogy for something as lofty as our souls, that's exactly what we're after. In our inconsistent and often clumsy ways, we are aiming for transformation. Each time we take ourselves in hand and change our direction, ask forgiveness, and start anew, we reaffirm our faith and our belief that we are redeemable. We don't want to stay exactly as we are. We don't want to keep being driven by the hair-trigger temper or the relentless bitter grudge or by our impatience or harsh judgments. We want to loosen the pinching in our hearts and live with more wonder, more serenity, kindness, and wisdom. We want to live so there's a little shimmer of grace left behind when we're gone. Backside redemption isn't straightforward or easy. It doesn't fall down on us from on high or come in a flash of illumination. It is filled with false starts and wrong turns, lessons we learn, but then have to learn all over again. Backside redemption isn't about saving us, but instead shaping us. And it's the most certain redemption available in this sweet world. We can help each other with sin, forgiveness, redemption, and through this transition period by being there for each other, being there authentically for each other when we are frightened or angry, troubled or lonely. Sing out or simply say the words of our closing hymn, When I Am Frightened.
We extinguish our chalice today with the words by Patrick Murphy. As we extinguish the light of this chalice, may we remember these words. We believe that many streams join to make a river, that the way to wisdom lies in an open ear and heart, that goodness may be pursued for the sake of goodness and not from fear of punishment, that knowing and not knowing are part of the same, and ambiguity is permissible.
The closing words were written by UU minister Hope Johnson. Listen, light the way, lend a hand, make decisions, commit, take risks, fail forward, build community, nurture meaningful relationships, be real, give thanks, invest in someone or something that you believe in, live, love, dream big, be transformed, change the world, lead, and keep your dreams alive. May it be so. Amen.